Hey everyone, welcome to this video on the fascinating history and evolution of the Kraft company. Most of us are probably familiar with Kraft as a major cheese and food products brand, but as you'll see, their story is much more complex and unexpected than that. Over the course of this video, I'm going to take you on a journey through Kraft's origins, their major acquisitions and mergers, their forays into unexpected product categories, and the ups and downs they've faced over the decades. By the end, I hope I'll have convinced you that Kraft is far more than just a cheese company, they're a true corporate giant with a rich and multifaceted history. This is the Finance Virtuoso channel, where we talk about all things finance. For your daily dose of valuable information on money, business, investments, and savings, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell right now. Let's start at the beginning. Kraft was founded in 1903 by a Canadian immigrant named James Lewis Kraft. Kraft had grown up on a farm in Canada, and after moving to the United States, he worked for 10 years as a clerk in a general store in Buffalo, New York. It was during this time that Kraft observed a major problem in the cheese industry. The lack of refrigeration meant that large wheels of cheese would often spoil and have to be thrown out before they could be sold. Kraft had an ingenious solution. He started buying cheese in bulk from wholesalers, cutting it into smaller portions, wrapping them in foil, and reselling them to stores. This allowed the cheese to stay fresher for longer, and the stores could sell it before it went bad. Kraft started making deliveries by horse and wagon, and by 1909 the business was thriving, with 4 of Kraft's brothers joining him to help run it. In 1914, Kraft expanded by buying a factory and getting involved in cheese production. But the real breakthrough came a few years later, during World War I, when Kraft developed a process for pasteurizing and canning cheese. This shelf-stable canned cheese was a huge hit with the military, and Kraft sold over 6 million pounds of it to the US government. In the 1920s, the dairy industry began consolidating, with a few major players emerging. Kraft was one of them, and in 1928 they merged with the Phoenix Cheese Corporation, the makers of Philadelphia cream cheese. 2 years later, in 1930, Kraft merged with another industry giant, National Dairy Products, creating a company that controlled 40% of the U.S. cheese market. Over the next decade, this new Kraft National Dairy behemoth introduced a number of iconic products, including Velveeta, Miracle Whip, and Kraft macaroni and cheese. The Great Depression and World War II were particularly fortuitous times for Kraft, as their affordable and shelf-stable products flew off the shelves. Kraft continued to thrive in the post-war years, even branching out into television with the launch of the hugely successful Kraft Television Theater in 1947. But the real turning point came in 1980, when Kraft merged with a company called Dart, which was best known for owning Tupperware and Duracell batteries. This was a major shift for Kraft, taking them beyond just food products and into the world of consumer goods and electronics. Over the next few years, Kraft also acquired the food service equipment company Hobart and the KitchenAid brand. However, this diversification strategy didn't quite pan out, and in 1985 Kraft and Dart went their separate ways, with Kraft keeping Duracell and returning to its food roots. But Kraft's independence was short-lived. In 1988, they were acquired by the tobacco giant Philip Morris for a staggering $12.9 billion. This was part of a broader trend in the 1980s of tobacco companies buying up major food brands, with Reynolds acquiring Nabisco and Philip Morris snapping up General Foods as well. Under Philip Morris ownership, Kraft continued to expand, acquiring European snack and confectionery companies like Cadbury in 2010. But by the early 2000s, the health and wellness trends were starting to impact Kraft's more processed and indulgent product portfolio. In 2007, Philip Morris spun Kraft off as an independent, publicly traded company. Then in 2012, Kraft underwent another major reorganization, splitting into 2 separate publicly traded companies, Kraft Foods, focused on U.S. grocery items, and Mondelez International, snacks and candies, including Nabisco and Cadbury. And the story doesn't end there. In 2015, Kraft merged with the Heinz Company, backed by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, creating the Kraft-Heinz Company that exists today. Throughout all of these changes, one thing that's been consistent is the sheer breadth and diversity of Kraft's product portfolio. Sure, they're known for cheese, but they've had their hands in everything from processed meats to baked goods to batteries. Let me give you one example to illustrate just how far-reaching Kraft's brands have been. Take the Humble Jet Puffed Marshmallow. Kraft introduced this product back in 1959, and it remained part of their portfolio through all the mergers, acquisitions, and spin-offs over the decades. For over 60 years, Jet Puffed Marshmallows were owned by Kraft, except for a brief 5-year period in the mid-90s when they were sold to another company. Even through Kraft's split into Kraft and Mondelez, the marshmallows stayed with the Kraft side of the business. So you can see how Kraft's tentacles have stretched across so many different consumer product categories over the years. They've truly been a corporate chameleon, adapting and evolving to take advantage of new opportunities, even if it meant venturing far beyond their cheese and dairy roots. Of course, Kraft's diversification and acquisition spree hasn't always paid off. Their forays into Tupperware, KitchenAid, and other non-food categories in the 80s and 90s were not hugely successful. And more recently, the Kraft-Heinz Company has struggled to keep up with changing consumer preferences for fresher, less processed foods. The 2015 Kraft-Heinz merger was meant to drive cost savings and boost efficiency, but it seems the emphasis may have been too heavily on the cost side rather than innovating and responding to market shifts. Iconic brands like Kraft and Oscar Mayer have had to be written down in value, acknowledging their declining relevance. So what does the future hold for this corporate juggernaut? Kraft-Heinz is certainly working to adapt, investing more in e-commerce, exploring plant-based alternatives, and trying to make their legacy brands more appealing to health-conscious consumers. But there's no question they face an uphill battle against nimbler, more trend-forward competitors. In the end, I hope I've convinced you that Kraft is far more than just a cheese company. Over its 120-year history, it's transformed itself time and time again, from a small cheese distributor, to a massive dairy and food conglomerate, to a diversified consumer products empire, and back again. Through it all, Kraft has shown an incredible ability to identify new opportunities, make bold moves, and reshape its business model. While they've certainly had their fair share of stumbles along the way, you can't deny the sheer scale and ambition of this corporate titan. Whether you're a Kraft shareholder, a consumer of their products, or simply someone fascinated by business history, I think Kraft's story is endlessly compelling. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What has most surprised you about Kraft's evolution? And do you think they have what it takes to adapt and thrive in the years ahead? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.